Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another fun time with Zoom, as if you hadn't had enough of that in the past 20 months in our little Brady Bunch professional development setup we have going. Today's topic for this coffee break is looking at the resources that we have in Washington State Europe for students and for you and for families around exploring pathways and also for admissions to different post-high school pathways. My team is here minus Marcy, so we're not going to introduce ourselves and share our hideous photos again. I'm sure those are burned in your brain, but we are going to do a little icebreaker before we dive into the resources. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the app or the website Mural, but we're going to use that. So I'm going to put this link in the chat and hope that it works. And if not, we can do this a different way because I've been a teacher and I know you have to have backup plans. So Mural, it looks like people are able to join. So I'm not, so if you have not ever used Mural, I'm gonna give you a little explanation. So Mural, Mural is a website, and the functions of it is actually sort of just like flip chart paper, poster paper, whiteboard, and it's replicating that. And Kelly, I can see you moving around. So it replaces that, and it is free for everyone. And it comes with a bunch of templates. So if you wanted to do different types of brainstorming, strategy sessions, things like that, you could use all these free pre-made templates and use it. So there is a subscription component to it if there's like a paid version, but the bulk of it is free. And so for today's icebreaker, I just created basically a blank mural. And so my question for you is, what was your first job? And so to add a sticky note, you can right click. The other thing you can do is if you go over to the left hand side and you see this box that looks like a mountain with a sun in it, the image, you'll see it says images. If you open that, you can also type in a photo. And if you said your first job mine was like only for a day, I detasseled corn, and that was not for me. So I'm not going to type that in. I worked in an ice cream parlor. So if I typed in ice cream, it would come up with pictures. But if you add the word GIF after your keyword, you'll find some GIFs. So you could either use a sticky note or you could put a photo or both. So if you want to explore, I just wanted to show this as a cool free tool, and you can use it in workshops or with students. So I'm gonna try to find my and you should be able to move it around and scale it using your mouse. You can navigate the web page. If you look at the lower right hand corner, you'll see this kind of grayed out box. And if you mouse over that, it sort of acts as a map to this page. Or you can also zoom in and out by scrolling your mouse. It should make it bigger. or smaller to help you navigate? Oh, we have a bunch. Okay, I'm see who worked gluing export stamps? That is a heck of a first job. Picking berries. Oh, lifeguard. Some people had some cooler jobs than others. No offense. I mean, like the detasseling corn was like not fun. Let's see. Weighing logging trucks. That sounds terrifying to me. Worked in fields. Sports memorabilia. That's pretty cool. Waitress, server, waiter, housekeeper, picking berries. Did everybody get a chance to McDonald's? Everybody get a chance to try this out? Used bookstore, I see that. Ooh, okay. Yep, cornfield, yeah. Renting scooters. So I'm zooming in and out. Yeah. Wonderland Family Fun Center and Arcade. That sounds good. I did work in a fast food place, and a kid had an accident in a ball tank, but my shift ended right at that point. And so if ever there was a Saved by the Bell moment, that was mine. I'm like, sorry, I can't help clean this up.
At 16, I never accepted $5 or $10 tips to keep the go-karts running.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. All right. I think that's good. So we're gonna close out of this, and we are gonna switch on over to the resources. But I just wanted to show you guys this tool. And the reason I bring it up is because one thing when we're talking about admissions and exploring pathways is that students can tend to think, and even sometimes the messaging that they're hearing, that they can tend to think that they need to know specifically what their end destination is going to be, like, and often the specificity is outstanding. Like, I want to be a pediatric cardiologist, it's something like super specific. And really, people end up having multiple jobs. If you think about how many jobs you've had to get to where you are right now, the path isn't always linear. And what I want to express to students when they're looking at pathways and admissions is that it's, to me, it's most important to know what you're interested in and like what your skill set is. And um, because, um, you know, students are going to have multiple jobs throughout their lifetime, and education is ongoing. And so um, I just want to make sure that they're just thinking about their interest in general and not getting caught up in trying to um, figure out completely, like, and limit their options when they're thinking about what kind of um, perhaps profession they want at the end, you know. So I'm going to share my screen and let's see. Okay. Um, are all of you able to see the Gear Up website? Yeah, okay. All right. So on our website, gearup.wa.gov, we have, as I've mentioned in the past, we have a student and family tab, and we have an educator tab. For today's topic, we're not going to be looking at the grant manager tab like we have in the past. So I wanted to share some of the student resources that we've developed. So under Explore Pathways, you'll see a few handouts, and these handouts often accompany, but they don't have to, but they can accompany the 12th year handbook that is for juniors and seniors. They weren't included in the book because we of page limits and scope and things like that. But they are able to be used in like tangent with that workbook. But you could use these even earlier. So we have a couple handouts that help students think through their options and some considerations. So for example, if a student is looking at a technical or a specialty school, especially like a for-profit school, there are some key considerations. And so these help students think through the decisions that they are making. We have military pathways and exploration tools. These are sort of would be like in place of like a campus visit on a college. If they are able to meet with a recruiter, there's some questions and things, or if they are able to go to a base, these are like what you would use for like a visit or interview in that case. And then we have resources that were developed by Annie, and maybe Annie can give a little overview for some new folks about these video series. These can
Yeah,
also, I was also going to say these can also be found in the campus visit section of the website as well. But sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So these are kind of broken out into 3 different categories. So you have our virtual campus visit series, which are meant to serve as a campus visit that you can't do in person, or just generally more accessible, right? So we have about, I want to say about 16 or 17 virtual campus visit series, which are great to share out with students so that they can visit campus kind of at their own convenience. We also have a virtual speaker series, which is a really awesome series we did last fall that involves like an application panel, some info on financial aid 101, tips and tricks for scholarship searching. And then there's also a panel in there on, or not a panel, excuse me, but a session in there on kind of apprenticeship 101 and what it looks like to be in an apprenticeship. And then lastly, last spring, we did a virtual career and technical program series. And that really just looked, we went to a campus, but really dived a bit deeper into a specific career or technical program to give an overview on how those differ from what maybe students know about traditional college pathways. So yeah, those are the 3 video resource categories that you can utilize around pathways.
Thank you. Yeah, and they're all on YouTube, like, and you can find our other professional development videos also on our YouTube channel as well. So again, under this student tab under exploration of pathways, we also have some additional resources, and these resources are not ones that we've developed, but they are from reputable partners. And so they can help students explore different options like apprenticeships and other options that might not be 2- and 4-year schools like AmeriCorps or whatnot. And so I wanted to point out in the educator section, we added, this was not here last year, but we heard feedback that you were looking for resources. And so we added this tab, and this really mirrors what students have as well. So next we are going to look at the admissions. And in the student section, you'll see under apply to college, you'll see information about the 12th year campaign. And if you remember, Christina Winstead was on here last time, and she was sharing her resources around financial aid and where to find things. One thing that we did was I added links to this page and in the educator section so that you don't have to go to WASAC's page to try to find things. So I will, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find one thing that I thought I added. I will add. Yeah, I guess I haven't added it to this section yet. But you can find the 12th year workbook here, and this is a fillable PDF. And on the educator side, I will show you how you can order hard copies. But for this section on the apply to post-high school options, we have, again, here's the workbook, and here again are individual handouts. So one thing that was new during COVID last year was schools, became test optional. So we do explain what students should take into consideration when making a decision. Even if schools are test optional, sometimes there are benefits to taking the SAT or ACT. And so we have that explanation here. You might be encountering students who are going to take a pass, but maybe it might help with a scholarship application if they did actually take that exam. And then we have some resources, some handouts on different pathways, and also admissions for some certain populations. And then again, additional links to resources from reputable partners. So we have some for foster youth, some for youth experiencing homelessness, and some family resources. And then one really great resource is Get Schooled. Get Schooled is a great partner, and they do free essay reviews, whether it's for a college application or for scholarships. So students can submit it, and they'll get feedback, and it is pretty timely, within about a week. So that's a really great resource. This resource is also mentioned in the scholarship section, so students can see and be reminded of that. In the educator section, it's a little bit different under admissions. You'll see here's the student workbook, but I've added, because the WASAC page can be a little nebulous, I've added specifically the link to order hard copies of materials, and they have more materials than just the workbooks. You can see that you can get postcards in different languages and stickers and other really great things. So and then they also have I've added this as well as new, I've added their link to their Padlet on, here's their virtual financial aid toolkit, their Padlet. And again, here's some handouts. One handout that I developed last year that you might be maybe you might want to look at is this: considering a gap year due to COVID. As students think about their post-high school pathways, there might be some students who are reluctant to make a specific plan for next year. And this handout, it is not pro or con against a gap year, but it provides an explanation of the challenges and benefits, but it also gives a student and their family questions that they should take into consideration to help them make the most informed decision possible. So that's something new in terms of a pathway. If you might be encountering more students considering that than in the past. And then if that is the case, then we need to think about how we message them about what's the plan after that. How do they develop the next step following that? How do they come back and get information about how to apply for financial aid, etc. So we also have here that Wisher handbook that we talked about last time that has like really great information on deadlines and application fees, and it has profiles of all the higher ed institutions in Washington. This is a really great PDF. And then for all of you coordinators, we have these guides and resources. So these are different resource guides to help you work with students who have some unique considerations. So this college access considerations for diverse populations covers youth who've been in foster care, youth who are experiencing homelessness, who they may qualify as an independent student for financial aid, students who are identified as LGBTQ+, students who are undocumented, and this the one below it talks about students with disabilities, and helping them understand the differences in accommodations that they can get in K-12 versus higher ed. This senior year binder system was developed by TRIO, and it's a way for students to stay organized in the process of all their different applications for scholarships, admissions, financial aid, whatnot. And we have a tracker from Chicago that you can use if you are wanting to track where students are in the process. And then again, we have this handbook that's helping transgender and non-binary students find a good college fit and answer questions around the legality of what name to use, and residents, talking to schools about residency or disclosing information and things like that. And it gets into some of the legal stuff and assessing college friendliness and things like that. So let's see. I am going to stop sharing my screen and go back to the Brady Bunch situation. That was a lot of me talking. So now I wanted to, we're not going to have breakouts this time. Rather, I would like to be able to have kind of just a whole group conversation. One thing that whether you're cohort or priority, you're still working with students in exploring pathways and admissions. And so one of the resources that's really applicable to both is that 12th year handbook. And so because that is for juniors and seniors. And so I wondered if anybody has any experience actually using that with students in the past or this year. And if so, if they could talk about um, what strategies they're using to use this workbook. Because I've heard from folks that people are having a hard time getting into classrooms. So I was wondering if a couple people could maybe share if they are having any success or challenges in using this resource, and how in the school day, or how they are actually connecting with students.
I'll go, Kelly. Or Beth, I'll go. So we have meal success, which is about a 35-minute period where kids check on their grades and they check on everything, and they're in a classroom. So I just pop into the advisors and I don't really give them a choice. I say, hey, I'm here today. Everybody take out your book. And then we go through the different sections with them. And that's how we do it. They don't know they can say no. So.
Thank you. That's great. Is anyone else having any luck working with students in, career exploration and admissions?
Beth, I'll share. I use mine. We're still making one-on-one senior appointments, and those are given to the students their junior year at a parents meeting, so the parents are aware of it as well. And we now have a sign-off sheet that it has to be. We're making it part of graduation, that they have to have their book ready to go. So it's been working well for us.
Thank you. Any other folks? The reason I wanted to have a whole group conversation is that we have new staff, and we also have really experienced staff in the room. And so I wanted to help talk through some ideas that work and even some that aren't working, and why. Especially because this year and this past year have looked really different than than the ways they have in the past. So if anybody has any success stories about how they are hosting activities with students right now, that would be helpful to hear. Are you doing virtual, in-person activities?
Beth, at West Valley, we've been recording our presentations and then sending those links out to our advisory teachers, just because we're trying not to gather the entire cohort into one space. And then I walk around to all 11 advisory class or 10 advisory classes for 11th grade and just make sure that the teachers started the presentation. And one of the things that's worked well for us in years past that I'm hoping to do again in the winter is we brought our National Honor Society students in. So this was when our students were freshmen. So we brought in the upperclassmen and we trained them in a presentation. So I created the presentation, trained them in it, and then had some opportunities for them to personalize their own experiences. And then they went into the advisory class, 2 presenters per advisory, and presented it. And that worked really well, because I doubt we're the only school where advisory class presentations aren't always completed all the way from start to finish. And so because we had 2 students who are presenters, we received a lot of positive feedback from the advisors saying the students were more attentive because they had, peers or upperclassmen in the front of the class presenting, so they were more respectful. And it really made it, so it took some of the burden off of advisory teachers, because a lot of times teachers feel like advisory is one more prep that they have to prepare for. So when we took it on us as Gear Up to train the students to go in and do the presentation, it worked a lot better. So that's something that we're hoping to continue in the future too.
That's great. Thank you. What about folks who don't have advisory? How are you connecting with the students? Because I know some teachers are really focused on their classroom time, you know, given the fact that they're kind of playing catch up.
So I maybe can speak to that a little bit. I'm also brand new to the position, so like it's kind of a dual-ended struggle to get connected to these students because they don't already know me. So I have made the effort to like make myself available in English classrooms in particular because I have a background in that, and so I can kind of help with their writing when they need that. And then our school has started a program where we have students who are have fallen behind in their classes due to like COVID absences. And so I've been like facilitating that in the morning and just kind of being in there with the juniors and making sure that they're working and just an adult there for some extra help. And that's the main way that I'm connecting to students right now, apart from just if they're on my radar, pulling them into my office and talking to them. So it is difficult.
Anyone else who doesn't have access to students during advisory, how are you reaching students and or families right now?
This is Erin from Swallowcombe. We have academic workshop classes. So I would say if you guys have any classes out there that are like study kind of whatever you want to call them classes, that is honestly the best place for us to spend our time right now. So we spend a lot of time in those spaces trying to connect with kids, working with them one-on-one. And you all know the need is great. It's really, really great. So a lot of our focus is on academic support. Right now, our college and career stuff is sprinkled in our advisories by our district. And our AVID classes are going to start doing what somebody I think mentioned here with their students being more involved. So we're trying, but that's just kind of where we're at.
And we've also utilized our late start. So I'm guessing most, if not all of us, have some form of late start or early release. The hard part obviously is trying to have something that engages kids to want to be there in the time that they don't have to be here on site. So we have one next Wednesday, which is going to be all about how to search for scholarships. So we're going to try and provide some treats and hot chocolate and try and make it something that they hopefully will want to attend. I think the hard part, and I know we're not the only one in talking with other care coordinators, is just the level of engagement right now is at an all-time low for us. And so how do we motivate the kids to want to attend things, whether it's the optional things that they can attend outside of the school day or just to engage in the ones that we offer during the school day and not have them be on their phones, you know, and having other distractions. So that's a huge part of a barrier that we're facing right now, even separate from finding the time to complete the activities, but how do you engage them even if you do have that time?
Does the engagement piece, this is, you know, since I am not in the school, does engagement for you guys, does the disengagement feel like burnout and, you know, like fatigue? Or is it more like a sense of kind of like why bother planning for, you know, like next year when things are like uncertain? Or is it something else or all of the above?
I think it's like 90% burnout and like 10% like uncertainty, in my personal opinion.
We actually have a lot of students who also don't want to leave class. We last week were actually able to take a field trip. So we actually ran a student leadership workshop at a local event space at a church.
Mhm.
And getting students to sign up to go on that field trip. I mean, in the past, field trips have never really been an issue, right? Kids are
Mhm.
usually like, oh yeah, I'll leave campus. And this was even a half day. It wasn't even a full day of school. And the most common thing students said is, I can't leave class. I have a test. I'm too far behind, whatever it is. So it's just interesting that that is, that's where a lot of students are coming from right now, a lot more than used to be, at least.
So that sounds like a lot of pressure for students. I can understand like the burnout. I feel like all of us also have our own level of burnout as well, you know.
I have a question for anyone on here. I'd be curious to know if any of your schools are doing high dosage tutoring in your schools. It's something that we're talking a lot about here, trying to get up and running, and we do it in small ways. So I'd be curious if somebody here already has that up and running in their schools.
Erin, I don't know what that term of, what did you
High
call
dosage
it?
tutoring, it's like research-based. It's during the school day, and what it looks like, it's like no more than 30 minutes. It's like a ratio of 1 tutor to like 2 or 3 students max. And it's embedded in the school day. And so like a lot of states have used some of their CARES money to put funding towards this because it's expensive. It's like stuff we've already done as far as like personalized learning goes, but it's just kind of more intentional. And they're showing a lot of, fancy that, they're showing more humans in the school. It's more impactful. It makes sense, but it's targeted strategic interventions, and students meet with the tutor 2 to 3 times a week. It's consistent, it's during the day, it's not after school. And there's a lot of research that's backing up the positive impact that this is having on schools, especially now, and helping to support our teachers.
Mhm. It doesn't look like anyone else is doing that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm
Well,
late to the
the
button.
closest thing, oh, go ahead.
We're doing something similar to that. So we're having like students that need to miss class periods because of OMI, or they're at home waiting results of some sort of test or another. And so as being part of the grade level meeting, we reach out to the parents, make sure they have Wi-Fi connection. We make sure, they know that their stuff is being posted online. When they come back to the school, we don't see the difference in them missing one more day to sit in one selective classroom and do a very focused, short term, how much can I get done? Because it's very hard for these students to hop back into a classroom where they're adding new material since they missed. They have old material to catch up on. So we're doing kind of like, it sounds like a very focused, short half day or maybe a period length to really help that child settle back into the environment of coming back to school, where the stress level, I'm receiving new stuff and new skills, and I have all this old stuff to catch up on. So we don't necessarily, like you had like maybe tutors you outreach, we're trying to bring in volunteers and more help into the building, but we're definitely trying out something like that. We have a very focused, set aside, we'll pull you out during the school day to get that stuff done.
And David from East Valley mentioned in the comment that they were having a hard time hiring tutors. So I think that whole level of disengagement, I don't think it's just our high school students. So just as an example, for the past 12 years, I've been hiring college state work study students and through Gonzaga. And every year I receive, about a dozen applications from students. And so I get to choose the cream of the crop of the top, 3 or 4 that I want to hire. This year I received 0 applications. And so not really sure what's going on at the level of, college students also. We were lucky that I was able to keep one of our old state work study students, Jordan, who's on the training right now too. But we're hiring her 100% out of Gear Up, so not with state work study funds like we normally would. But in the years past, we've also hired like a senior as a high school peer tutor, and that was successful. So like right now, Jordan's working with students 5th, 6th, and 7th period, which is an after school class, just working on credit retrieval, because our kids right now are supposed to have 12 credits as juniors. We have some kids as low as 3 credits right now. And so that one-on-one support is huge. And those kids are getting through their classes quickly. But the reality is only the kids who are Jordan is working with are the ones who are really getting the credits quickly. So she's kind of rotating them. We're kind of choosing the students who have math courses they need to finish, because those are difficult to do on your own. And she's kind of doing a rotation with those students, but it's hard to find students right now as far as tutors go.
Oh, yeah, we're having a ton of trouble getting work studies also. I also connected to like Whitworth, Eastern, and Gonzaga, and talked to some students there that had like Facebook posts for tutoring, and they shared like our job postings and stuff like that on their math, like their math board that they share with all the other students. And we had nobody even apply. And I mean, the pay is good and the hours are good. And so it's pretty crazy, but yeah, we're working with the teachers, and doing the after school math tutoring is going pretty well. We had 12 kids yesterday. I think like 6 were juniors. So that was good. So like half of them were showing up. They said it was because there's a test that week, but I was like, hey, just give more tests. So.
Do you all find that right now, the majority of your activities and the way that you're supporting students is through tutoring right now, focusing on catching up on academics, and the stuff that we had done in the past is maybe secondary? Or
I know a lot of students I've talked to, like, because I'm trying to engage with students and getting to know a lot of them, and going to their advisories and kind of asking them, like, so what I've been telling them is like, you guys need to let me know what you want, or just accept what I give you if you don't have a voice, right? Like, you have a chance to let me know being new. And most everybody said like, I could use a tutor. Like, that's the biggest thing that I've heard from students.
it's hard to think about these other things, like when you really have to have your academic stuff in place first. I
have 43 juniors with 1 F and 47 with 2 to 3 Fs. So that's just for the first 6 weeks. So a lot of our work right now is just, my work is just trying to engage with them and have them. I have some students that come into our office at lunch to do homework, not even to get help, just to have a quiet place to do homework, getting an LSE engagement. But I mean, I can only imagine how weird it's been to actually live like, hey, you're in school, you're out of school, here's this, and now everything's kind of back to normal.
I mean, I can't honestly imagine being a student going through all of this. You know, when you're young, like a year or a summer feels like a lifetime. And these students have been going through this for like 20 months. And like, I can't imagine having like my elementary or high school, you know, my whole experience being this weird amalgamation of stuff, and also feeling behind and stressed out. You know, it's intense. Are there resources? So, you know, I talked about the exploration and admissions resources, but are there resources that I could be examining or creating or finding for where you're at now? Like, I'm feeling like the things that we talked about might not be what you need right now.
Beth, I think along the lines of tutoring and such high academic need for so many of our students, one of the biggest issues that we have is math, students struggling in math. But the majority of the grown-ups in the room also struggle with math. So And you know, depending on the teacher or the district, our access to the math curriculum itself varies. And so a lot of times what staff is doing is they're literally going to class with students to learn the content that the students are learning, or getting information directly from the teacher to be able to help the students. Or we're Googling it, right? So any other, you know, I think any math specific tutoring resources or just education resources in general, you know, we've come up with a lot, I'm sure all of us on our own, just by Googling, or I've never just typed an equation into Google and seen if I can get the answer. Like, I mean, this is how we are tutoring students in math, because we are not necessarily well trained in that area and haven't been in those classes since high school ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of, you know, like Khan Academy and stuff, but I can investigate, and also maybe I can investigate possible like grant programs or other things that also might provide some support. So I'll look into different resources around academic support and maybe even credit retrieval. I'll dive into that because I want to make sure what I'm doing is helping you. You know, the resources we have, a lot of them are, even though we've added some from like the gap year handout and some other virtual things from last year during COVID and the shutdown, we're in a kind of a different reality. So I want to make sure. So if you have ideas or questions or anything, feel free to email me because I want to help.
Beth. So I've been looking at, because of the wide variety and like the feedback I'm getting, like there's two things that I was looking at. Was I want to talk to iTutor. These are people we had at the Gear Up conference too. And something else kind of intriguing. I can't remember their name. I'm trying to look through the history but like the agent program, where they have, it was at Gear Up West. They
Student Success Agency.
Yeah, like just looking at those two, it feels like a lot of like we already have the demographics already, like they're all individuals, you know, the more we go, like it stops being like conformity, like we're a group and everybody's an individual. And it seems like the more conversations I'm having, everybody wants to be learning alone. And this could be the old part of me, but like doing math on a computer, when I sat with a student to try to help him, I was like, where's your textbook? And he was like, my what? And I was like, I'm sorry, the book that you like look at to do this? And he's like, oh, it's on the computer. And I was like, well, that's not good. So I could just be old, like the whole like this music sucks age thing, but it feels like I need like a textbook to do math. But no, it feels like they're all individuals a lot more, and they want like their individualized help. So I've been trying to look at those two options and price them and see like how beneficial they might be.
And that was surprising to me, David, too, that they have no textbook. But then the part that was even more surprising is they don't have pencil or paper.
Oh, I had to tell this kid, I said, I'm going to treat you like my kid right now. Like, go get a piece of paper. And because what happens is they stare at the computer and they don't write the stuff down. I'm like, are you trying to do like algebra 2 in your head? Because that's not a thing. And he literally looked at me like, why would I get a pencil and paper? And I was like, you need to get a pencil and paper and like write this down. So yeah, it's a weird world. So
I'm just going to circle back when you ask about resources and circle back to high dosage tutoring. I'm just going to keep plugging that, because if there are any fundings available that you can find, that really, like when you talk about resources, we need more funding to be able to hire the tutors to be able to do the things that we are not as great at doing, like math specific type stuff, because that's not how we're trained. So yeah, any amount of push at the state level for that would be awesome.
Okay. I have my working list. I want to be mindful of time, and so if you have other ideas, feel free to email me. We have 2 things left. I'm gonna go first, and then I'll hand it off to Annie, and then we will wrap it up. The one thing I wanted to say, besides resource development, whether that's funds or content or whatever, for me. The other thing that I would like people to message me about is if there's an interest in, so again, like I said, we in this room we have a variety of different experience levels, and so we do have new staff, and we also have very seasoned staff. And so I wanted to throw out there an idea of mentoring. I know we talked about burnout, but I'm wondering if you're a newbie and you feel like you would like to maybe have a seasoned staff be like a buddy where you could ask questions about like how they've done certain type of activity. I'd want to know. And if you're a seasoned person and you are willing to just make a connection with a newbie and be able to answer some questions. I'm not talking about some big time intensive type of thing, just, making that connection. If you are a newbie or seasoned person and you are open to that, please message me, because I want to make a connection so that newbies know that they can reach out to an experienced person, because you guys are each other's best resources. So yes, feel free to email me, and I'm going to hand it off to Annie for some final updates, and then we will see you another time. Annie?
Awesome, thanks, Beth. So just a quick reminder, I should have gotten an email out to everyone this morning about swag and incentives that have been sent out over the course of the last month and a half or so. You should have received 4 items. So you should have received lanyards, stress balls, earbuds, and water bottles. So please refer to that email and get back to me. Really, if you could get back to me by the end of the day, I'd super appreciate it. We're unable to pay an invoice until we know that everything has been received. So on behalf of your students receiving incentives, I really want to make sure that you got what you needed. So if you have not responded to that email, please respond to that email by the end of the day so we can make sure everything is where it needs to be.
And Annie, I wanted to echo, I forget which coordinator responded about the stress balls. So I've decided that the stress balls are going to females who have 4.0 GPAs who do yoga and meditate, because I can't give those stress balls to any boys in my program because I get feedback from administrators. The graduation caps last year, I think were a little safer because they didn't bounce and they didn't look like something that's fun to throw. So just the feedback on that piece, that I'm only giving those to girls who I trust.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. That was a bad idea on Marcy and I's behalf. The crazy thing about swag is you'd be amazed the difference in price between a ball and a graduation cap. So we try to do the best we can with what we got, but unfortunately, yeah, bad call on our end. So do whatever you need in handing those out.
I'm like, I love the balls. I gave one to a baseball player in math tutoring yesterday, but I'm also new, so I'm going to keep doing it until I get yelled at. So, but I'm also an athlete, so I'm like, yeah, free balls to throw around, but probably get in trouble later.
One of the kids suggested we have like an activity with them that you're actually supposed to throw them at each other, like in the gym or something. So we're thinking about doing something like that too.
Intense dodgeball,
Exactly. Duck, dive, dodge.
Maybe when we do our
dodge.
leadership day, Rosalie, we can put that together.
Sure, that sounds great. I'll save them for that. Yep, that's perfect. Bring it on.
Well, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for the honest discussion. And I really appreciate it because I want to help you guys help students and families. And so I have my own homework, and I thank you for everything that you're doing. And the financial aid, just as a FYI, the financial aid booklets and all those publications that I had talked to you guys about, those are in the process of being printed, and they will be sent to your school. I'll give you a heads up before all of that happens, but they're in the print shop right now. So we'll probably be closer towards the end of the month, I think, when they're delivered to you. But I'll give you a heads up. And I will see you next time. And thank you again.